Okay, think about the ocean for a second. Just miles and miles of it, right?
Yeah.
Holding all these mysteries we can barely even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And, for as long as humans have looked out at that vast horizon, there's always been this question. What kind of colossal creatures might be lurking down there in those unseen depths?
Right. That deep, dark unknown.
And sort of emerging from that primordial darkness, we get this name, Leviathan. It's a word that just echoes, doesn't it, across cultures, religions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a symbol of immense power and, frankly, a really primal fear.
Absolutely. The name itself, Leviathan, it has Hebrew roots, means something like twisted or coiled.
Twisted or coiled. Yeah, that definitely evokes something huge and, well, serpentine.
It really does. It's this creature that's kind of coiled its way deep into our collective consciousness, inspiring, both awe and just sheer terror for centuries.
Okay, so let's dive into this.
Yeah.
For this deep dive, we've really immersed ourselves in a whole collection of YouTube discussions looking at the biblical side, the mythological angles on this legendary being.
Mm-hmm. Some fascinating takes out there.
Yeah. And our goal today is really to navigate these different accounts, try to unpack the, multifaceted nature of Leviathan. Where
Yeah.
does it come from? How have people understood it differently? And ultimately, why does it still hold this terrifying reputation?
And we want to do that in a way that gives you, the listener, a really clear picture without it feeling, overwhelming.
Exactly. Enlightened, not swamped.
Precisely. We're aiming to synthesize the key ideas from these sources, show the connections, and hopefully provide a thorough understanding of this enduring myth.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. The name itself and where Leviathan first sort of pops up in the text we looked at.
Well, the earliest mention we find, it's in the book of Job. Job chapter 3, verse 8.
Right.
Job's in the state of profound despair, and he wishes that those who curse the day were skilled enough to actually rouse up Leviathan.
Wow, so right away it's linked to curses, like
Yeah.
serious, powerful magic and enchanters.
Exactly. It immediately connects the creature to these really potent curses, suggesting it's a being of immense, maybe even chaotic force.
It's not just some casual monster mentioned then.
Yeah.
And our sources pointed out, didn't they, that in Psalm 74, it's used more metaphorically.
That's a really vital point, yeah. In Psalm 74.14, Leviathan isn't necessarily a literal sea monster. It's used figuratively to describe powerful, cruel enemies, specifically Pharaoh of Egypt.
So the monster image becomes like the ultimate symbol for oppressive human power.
Pretty much. The term clearly carried that symbolic weight, but interestingly, the sources also suggest a more literal reading of that same passage.
Oh, that's how.
Some interpretations argue that the Leviathan mentioned there does refer to actual, colossal sea creatures, ones that God subdued when the Israelites crossed the Red Sea.
Seriously. And their bodies then became food.
Food for animals in the wilderness, yeah. Imagine the sheer scale of that kind of event, these massive beasts just washed up.
That's wild. But then you get this totally different vibe in Psalm 104, right? Verses 25-26.
Completely different, yeah. Leviathan is described as being created by God specifically to play in the sea, right, alongside human ships.
Play, so it's like integrated into God's good creation, almost like a majestic feature of the ocean.
Exactly, it's part of the design. God is shown as the architect of everything, and even something as, formidable as Leviathan exists within his grand plan. Its habitat is ordained by him.
Which kind of raises the question, what's the purpose of such a powerful thing then?
Well, that brings us to an idea that one source really emphasized, particularly from the book of Job. The idea that Leviathan was one of 3 primordial beings, each ruling a different realm.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Leviathan in the sea.
Behemoth on the land and Ziz in the sky. And interestingly, Leviathan was often considered the most powerful of the 3.
Why? Just because the sea was so terrifying?
That's likely it. It probably reflects the inherent dangers, the uncharted nature of the ocean in the ancient world. It embodies that wild, unpredictable, deep.
Gotcha. And then there's that really dramatic myth. It sounds almost like, I don't know, cosmic horror about there being 2 Leviathans.
Yeah.
A male and a female.
Right. That sounds like a recipe for total global consumption, doesn't it?
Seriously, double trouble.
Yeah, the myth goes that God initially created both, a male and a female, but then there was a concern. Either they'd reproduce uncontrollably and just devour the world,
Okay.
or maybe the female became corrupted somehow, turned towards evil. So God made the decision to destroy the female.
Whoa, just took her out to maintain balance.
Seems so. Seen as crucial for preserving creation.
So one colossal sea serpent down. What about the male? Is he just chilling in the abyss?
Not exactly a peaceful retirement, no. The sources describe the male Leviathan as being, well, pretty bitter about losing his mate.
Can't blame him, really.
No. And he's supposedly awaiting this final cataclysmic battle with God at the end of time.
Ah, so that brings in the whole end times angle, the eschatological dimension, you could say.
Precisely. It links Leviathan to the ultimate fate of the universe.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly powerful ancient sea creature, bit of a tragic backstory.
Hmm.
But what does it actually look like?
Yeah.
Job 41 gives this incredibly vivid description, doesn't it? And it sounds absolutely terrifying.
Oh, it is. God himself gives Job this detailed rundown, emphasizing its, immense size, its sheer strength, its ferocity. Apparently, just looking at it is enough to induce terror.
Untamable,
It's
right?
completely untamable. A formidable body, covered in these overlapping scales like armor. So tough that no weapon can pierce them. And fearsome teeth, of course.
And human weapons are just useless, like swords, spears, they just glance off.
Utterly futile. That's the picture painted. Iron is like straw, bronze, like rotten wood. You can't trap it. You can't cage it. It's just raw, immense power.
And it even affects its environment, right? Leaves tracks on land, stirs up this huge wake.
A massive wake, yeah. And it's described as making the deep ocean churn and boil like a pot. Leaves this shining trail behind it.
Boiling the deep. That image really sticks. And then God himself declares, this is in Job 41, that Leviathan is the true king of the beast. Nothing on earth equals it.
That's quite the endorsement, isn't it? It really underscores the creature's unique status. But naturally, this incredibly detailed description has sparked endless debate about what real-world animal could possibly have inspired it.
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. Crocodile comes up a lot.
Crocodile is a common suggestion, yeah. But also maybe some kind of massive ancient marine reptile.
One of our sources even floated the idea of a dinosaur, like a plesiosaurus or something similar.
It did. Given the potentially ancient setting of the Book of Job, the idea of Job encountering dinosaurs, while not mainstream, isn't completely dismissed by everyone. The descriptions are very specific.
Fascinating possibility.
Yeah.
But regardless of what it was, the point in Job seems to be God using this description to humble Job, right? To show the immense gap between God's power and human understanding.
Exactly. It's a powerful illustration. If you can't even comprehend or face this creature, Job, how can you possibly question me, the creator of everything? It's a pivotal moment for Job.
But Leviathan's story doesn't end there. Our sources tracked its symbolism into Isaiah and Revelation too.
That's right. In Isaiah 27.1, Leviathan pops up again, not literally, but as a symbol.
Representing.
Wicked, oppressive, earthly rulers, those opposing God's people. But the prophecy assures that God will ultimately defeat this symbolic monster, this evil.
And then in Revelation 13 talks about a beast from the sea.
Yeah, definite parallels there. A terrifying sea beast emerging from the abyss, often depicted with multiple heads. The link to the sea, the monstrous power. The echoes of Leviathan are strong, even if the name isn't used in that specific passage.
Consistently associated with chaos, rebellion against divine order.
And it's interesting, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, and Revelation actually translate Leviathan as dragon.
Dragon. Okay, that definitely cements the image. Fearsome, chaotic, maybe malevolent.
And that connection to the abyss in Revelation reinforces this idea of a deep, primordial evil rising up.
Now, one source threw out a less common idea. Could Leviathan have been the creature that swallowed Jonah?
It's less common than the great fish or whale idea, yeah. But when you think about the sheer size and monstrous nature described,
It could fit, couldn't it? Swallowing a man whole.
it certainly aligns with that capability. And the symbolism of being swallowed by chaos and then delivered. Some find that compelling.
Okay, let's talk about Leviathan and Behemoth. They often get paired together in Jewish tradition, right? Like the ultimate monster tag team.
They really do. Leviathan ruling the ocean, Behemoth ruling the land, seen as these two immense, powerful creations of God.
And there's a reason they were kept separate.
Yeah, the idea is God separated them deliberately. If they got together, their combined power might just, destroy the world.
Makes sense. Too much power in one place.
And there's also this future element, a belief that at the end times, both Leviathan and Behemoth will be slain.
And
Their flesh will become this great feast for the righteous in paradise.
wow. A celebratory monster barbecue. That's quite an image.
It is vivid. And one of our sources mentioned the Talmud goes into even more detail about Leviathan in this context.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Describing it as this enormous fish whose skin will be used to make a huge tent, a sukkah for the righteous, or even clothing.
Clothing made from Leviathan skin.
Apparently so. An incredibly luminous skin at that.
Yeah.
So bright, the leftover pieces will illuminate Jerusalem. It just highlights its extraordinary nature even after its defeat.
So clearly a huge figure in biblical accounts, Jewish tradition. But its influence goes back even further, doesn't it? We found sources pointing to mythological parallels in other ancient cultures.
Oh, absolutely. This archetype of the giant sea monster battling gods, embodying chaos, it's all over ancient Near Eastern mythology.
Well, in Ugaritic myths.
Exactly. You have Lutan, this multi-headed sea serpent battling the god Bel. It's that classic struggle. Order versus chaos. The similarities to Leviathan are pretty striking.
And Tiamat, in the Babylonian creation story, the Enuma Elisha, she's another one, right? A massive, watery chaos monster.
Very much so. Tiamat represents those primordial, chaotic waters. She's defeated by the god Marduk, who then uses her body to create the heavens and the earth. Scholars see huge parallels with Leviathan there. Both represent that initial watery chaos that has to be overcome to establish cosmic order.
It's like all these ancient cultures were grappling with the sheer power and mystery of the ocean.
And personifying it in these terrifying serpent figures.
Yeah. Our sources mention similar monsters in Canaanite, Phoenician, Assyrian myths too, always symbolizing chaos, cosmic battles.
Even saw a mention of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle reporting fiery dragons during the Lindisfarne raid. It just shows this enduring fascination, doesn't it?
It really does. These powerful dragon-like creatures inspiring awe and fear throughout history.
So, as Christianity developed, how did its view of Leviathan change? Especially with all these pre-existing chaos monster myths around. Well, within medieval Christian thought, Leviathan became increasingly allegorized. It started to be seen more as a demonic sea serpent, or a dragon, directly embodying evil, sin, sometimes even equated with Satan himself.
Really, linked to the serpent in Eden.
Some interpretations made that link, yeah, solidifying its association with primal evil and temptation.
So it shifted from being just this incredibly powerful creature in God's creation, maybe morally neutral, to something much darker.
Pretty much. Took on a much more malevolent significance.
Now, one source specifically asked, why is Leviathan so feared? What are the core reasons for this lasting terror?
Well, several big factors. First, just the ocean itself. In the ancient world, it was vast, mostly unknown, incredibly dangerous. Leviathan becomes the face of that primordial terror of the deep, the chaos lurking beneath the waves.
And that description in Job doesn't help. Invincible scales, crushing jaws, maybe even fire breath. It sounds utterly unbeatable by humans.
Exactly. It's presented as this unstoppable force. No weapon works, no strength prevails. Even the mightiest heroes are terrified. That invincibility is key to the fear.
Plus, as we mentioned, Isaiah 27.1 frames it as this cosmic enemy of order, something requiring God's own power to defeat. It's more than just a physical threat.
And comparing it to Behemoth, as the sources did, is insightful too. Behemoth is on land, huge, powerful, yes, but sort of observable, bounded.
Right. You can maybe see its limits.
But Leviathan, it's hidden in the abyss, unseen, always potentially there in that vast ocean. That taps right into our deepest fear, the fear of the unknown.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, even today, the deep ocean is still largely unexplored. That mystery lingers.
Definitely. And that Jewish eschatological view, Leviathan and Behemoth battling at the end of time, with Leviathan often seen as the more fearsome, that just reinforces its terrifying status.
And as Christianity evolved, that interpretation got even darker, right? More directly linked to evil.
It solidified further, yeah.
Yeah.
Leviathan became strongly associated with Satan, or the Antichrist figure in end times prophecy.
So not just a symbol of chaos, but embodying ultimate evil itself.
In many interpretations, yes. In medieval demonology, Leviathan was often pictured as a literal gatekeeper of hell, or the abyss, a horrifying mouth swallowing the souls of the damned.
Wow. And thinkers like Thomas Aquinas linked it to a specific sin.
Aquinas, and Peter Binsfeld too, connected Leviathan specifically to the deadly sin of envy, portraying it as this demon that swallows the envious.
Swallowing the envious, that is a particularly gruesome image.
It is, and that connection to the beast from the sea in Revelation and some theological views cemented its role as this powerful instrument of evil in the final days.
So Leviathan goes from being this awesome, terrifying creature of God to a key figure in the Christian understanding of evil itself.
A complex evolution, definitely. It absorbed meanings over time.
But despite all these shifts, its legacy just endures, doesn't it? in literature, horror, modern stories.
Absolutely. Our sources highlighted that. Think of Milton's Paradise Lost Leviathan used as this powerful metaphor for Satan's sheer scale and fallen majesty.
Or H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror. Those massive, ancient, unknowable sea creatures definitely owe something to the Leviathan archetype.
They certainly do. That sense of something vast, ancient, and terrifying dwelling in the depths.
And Melville's Moby Dick. Even without using the name, that white whale embodies that same feeling, right? The ocean's unknowable, unstoppable power, something beyond human control.
Definitely draws on that deep-seated archetype. So ultimately, as our sources show, Leviathan remains this incredibly potent symbol, a symbol of the unknown, the uncontrollable.
It embodies that primal fear of what's lurking just beneath the surface, literally in the ocean, but maybe metaphorically too.
Exactly, in the unexplored parts of our world, or even, the hidden depths of our own minds.
So wrapping up our deep dive here, Leviathan is just this incredibly layered figure. It's biblical, it's mythological, it's symbolic.
Rooted in accounts of primordial power, echoing across ancient cultures facing the sea, and symbolizing the terrifying, untamed power of the deep. Its meaning has shifted.
Right, from part of creation to a personification of evil.
But that core essence, immense, mysterious, awe-inspiring, and terrifying, that's remained remarkably consistent.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Consider this. Even now, with all our science, the sheer power and vastness of nature, it still holds mystery, doesn't it? Potential for the unknown. So what modern Leviathans might exist in our collective anxieties today? What forces or ideas embody that uncontrollable element and inspire that same kind of primal fear?
It's definitely something to think about, and we really encourage you to explore the sources we looked at or any related topics that sparked your interest. The story of Leviathan is, well, deep and winding.
Full of layers that still fascinate us thousands of years later.